Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lance Batchelor. I'm the Group Chief Executive of Saga, and I want to welcome you all here today. I want to offer a particular welcome to our customers who've come to join us this morning, also to our members of staff who've stopped work for a while to pop down, and to our local Hastings MP, Amber Rudd. Saga has been a British success story for about 60 years now, but we are fairly new to Hastings. Just in the last few years that we've arrived, and we've invested here in the town, and we now have several hundred employees working here. That is a reflection of our confidence in the future of Saga and of Hastings. The nation's over 50s are growing steadily in number. There are over 22 million of them today. They're a thoughtful, they're a savvy, and a streetwise bunch of consumers. Our political representatives are wise to listen to their concerns. And of course, at the current time, in the run-up to the next election, the nation's over 50s really want to know what the politicians are going to do to look after them. I'm delighted, therefore, to be able to introduce Amber Rudd, and she will in turn introduce our special guest here today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lance, and it's a great pleasure to be here at Saga's offices. I'm so glad that Saga is part of Hastings. We were delighted when you moved into Hastings just a year after the last general election, bringing with you so much jobs and investment into the town. And really, jobs and investment has been part of the Hastings story for the past 5 years. We've seen over £180 million of investment in infrastructure into the town and surrounding area. And that is beginning to yield real results to the town. We've seen unemployment, accounted for by the number of people on job seekers allowance, fall by nearly 50% over the past 5 years. And there is more to do and further to go, but I certainly believe we'll get the opportunity to do so we can take forward Hastings' regeneration. This year we're seeing the opening of the Link Road, which was pledged by the last government but delivered by this one, with 2,000 new jobs and 3,000 new houses going with it, and a great opportunity for more business investment into the area. And of course, my own special favourite, we're also seeing the opening of the pier, which has been so well supported by the lottery, but also by the government's Coastal Communities Fund. And I hope the Prime Minister will come back later in the year to help us open that. So, Prime Minister, thank you very much for joining us here today. We look forward to hearing from you.
Well, thank you very much, Amber, and I want to thank everyone at Saga for hosting us today and welcoming us today, and I certainly look forward, Amber, to coming back and opening the pier, because I know how much that matters to local people. Now, at the start of 2015, I've been setting out our key manifesto themes on the economy, on jobs, on taxes, and on education. Now, today I want to talk about our fifth set of commitments which will help us to deliver security in retirement for everyone. We are just 73 days away from that election. I keep quoting the figure every day. Some people have commented I haven't always got it right. I'm determined from now on not to make that mistake. And of course the choice at the election is about policies and records and teams, but it's also about values. And there's something, as Conservatives, we believe very strongly. If you've worked hard during your life, saved, paid your taxes, done the right thing, you deserve dignity when you retire. This comes back to the type of country our long-term plan is building. A country where you get something for something, not something for nothing. A country where if you put in, you get out. And no one has put in as much as our elderly. These people have fought wars, seen us through recessions, made this country the great country it is today. They brought us into the world, they cared for us, and now it is our turn, our fundamental duty to care for them. And for all the difficult decisions we've made over the past 5 years, we have said all along that dignity for older people was non-negotiable. And over the next 5 years, that should be the case again. And today I want to talk about the 5 commitments that will deliver that security I want to see for everyone. Now, commitment number 1 is to reward those who've worked hard by continuing to increase the state pension through the triple lock. Now that may sound like a piece of jargon, but actually it's a very simple and very important guarantee. Your pension will rise every single year at either the rate of earnings or prices or 2.5%, whichever is the highest. Now under Labour, it only tended to rise at the rate of prices. And the result was sometimes disastrous. In 1 year, pensioners received a paltry increase of just 75p. If that system had remained in place under this government, pensioners would have been shortchanged all over again. Look at the inflation rate today, just 0.3%. At times like this, our triple lock kicks in and increases your pension by 2.5%. So even when compared to a rise in line with earnings, this has made hundreds of pounds difference to older people. Today, your pension is £440 more than it would have been if prices had just risen with earnings. In fact, pensions are now at their highest point in relations to earnings for 20 years. And over this Parliament, they would have increased by £950 a year. There's something even more valuable, though, than the cash here, and that is the reassurance that in later years you will have financial security. Now, commitment number 2 is this. We're going to reward saving by introducing our new single-tier pension. We inherited a system that was fundamentally unfair on savers. If you'd put into a private pension, you'd have some of that money clawed back from the pension credit you would otherwise get. In other words, your income would be docked because you had worked hard and because you'd done the right thing. And this isn't just about the numbers, this is also about the psychology of saving. For years, the system was basically saying to people, don't bother putting something aside for the future because we'll look after you if you don't, and we'll penalise you if you do. Now, we're putting this big wrong right. From April 2016, we're bringing in a single-tier pension. This would effectively abolish means testing the pensions of people who've contributed all their lives. We're effectively saying, whoever you are, provided you put into the system, you will get out. You'll get a decent single-tier pension. Instead of a pension of £115.95 plus pension credit, you'll get at least £151.25. The effects of all this, one of the biggest changes we've made, I think will last long into the future. And what's more, the new state pension will help all those who didn't have their contributions recognised properly. Say you're a mother or a father and you stayed at home for a while to bring up the children, or you worked part-time for years as you nursed elderly parents. Under the old system, you'd get a lesser state pension as a result, which is then subject to a series of complicated adjustments and top-ups depending on your circumstances. The new system will put an end to that, saying that all those years will count as full contributions and will give you a flat-rate, decent state pension. Now, that won't just help all those who've done the right thing, it will also save the taxpayer around £30 billion a year in the longer term. Now, commitment number 3 is about freedom, giving people the freedom to invest and spend their pension however they like, and letting them pass it on to loved ones tax-free. Governments do have a tendency to treat grown-ups like children. If you wanted to take your money out of your pension when you retired, you would be taxed at 55%. That's right, the minute you touched your own money, more than half of it would be snatched by the taxman. There was effectively only one choice for people: buy an annuity and have your own money doled back to you, often at quite a poor rate. So government was basically putting your money in trust for the rest of your life. Why? Well, because effectively the government was saying, we don't trust you to spend your own money as you choose. Now, 6 weeks from today, all that changes. The lock will come off the vault. Your money will be yours to do with as you wish. If you want to buy an annuity, fine. If you want to take a lump sum, fine. It's your money, you earned it. So that's right, the biggest pension shake-up in pension history. Power to pensioners, the last remnant of the nanny state gone. That moment is just 6 weeks away, and for me it's as transformative as our reforms on education or welfare. Now, some people have said we shouldn't do this. We shouldn't trust people with their own money. But think about it like this. Even if someone does spend all their money, they will fall back on a pension, the single-tier pension I was just talking about, which is fully funded and set at a level that doesn't require additional means-tested benefits. So taxpayers will be protected in a way they simply aren't today. So we're giving you control over what you leave to your loved ones as well. There were rules that said you couldn't pass on your pension to the next generation when you die without paying a 55% tax. Now, I believe it's important to be able to leave something to your children and grandchildren, and I know how unfair people feel that so much of that, your hard-earned money, could be taken by the government. So that's why we've abolished this tax. And when your family do draw down on the money, they will only be taxed at the rate they would be for any other income. Again, the money that you've earned, you or your family keep, and with the Conservatives, that is the way it will stay. Now, commitment 4. Commitment 4 is this: giving everyone the help they deserve in later life by protecting the pensioner benefits, including the free bus pass, TV licenses, and winter fuel payments. In 2010, I looked down the barrel of a television camera and I made a very clear commitment to the British people that I would keep these things. And that wasn't a commitment for 5 years, it was a commitment for as long as I am Prime Minister. And I know some people don't like this. There are those who say it's an unnecessary luxury during a time of financial difficulties. I believe they're wrong. Say that to the older woman who can keep warm tonight on this cold February evening because she's been given the money to heat her home. Say that to the widower who's heading into town on the bus, doing his shopping, seeing people possibly for the only time that week. Tell that to the bedbound lady whose whole day is brightened by the television, or the sick man whose pain is kept at bay. Comfort, independence, companionship, health, these aren't luxuries. They are what people who've worked and saved all their lives deserve. And think what we would be giving up if we did take them away. The principle that if you've done the right thing, you'll get the benefits of living in Britain. Now, there are those who say that by doing this, it proves that the young are paying more for deficit reduction than the old. Again, wrong. Of all the difficult decisions we've taken in government, the biggest saving we've made is actually raising the age of retirement. It will save £500 billion. So no one can say that older people are not paying their fair share. The fact is, if something happens to you when you're old, when you've passed that pension age, or to your income, you can't as easily change your circumstances as younger people can. You can't as easily move house or change job or go full time. You need to know the support is always there for you, and that is another reason why I want to protect these benefits. Now, there are those who argue that we should, at the very least, to make some savings, take these benefits away from richer people. I don't think that is right either, because after all the administration, after the bureaucracy of a new means test, you really don't save huge amounts of money. If we take Labour's policy to means test winter fuel payments, they want to take these payments not just off the additional rate taxpayers, but those paying the higher 40p rate too. Now, they claim it would save £105 million a year. The latest numbers actually show there'd be a gross saving of £85 million, and after £10 million of administration costs, the net saving would be £75 million. Now, that is a 4% saving on the winter fuel payment budget. And the truth is this: the big savings would only come if you restricted these benefits far more aggressively, or if you abolished them altogether. And that is why I would warn people: beware of the politician promising you just to cut one or two of these benefits and only by a bit. Because once they've started chipping away at them, believe me, before long they'll start getting rid of them altogether. And we'll be back where we were, the people who've worked hard all their lives being written off and forgotten about. So yes, we will protect the winter fuel payment, the free bus passes, the TV licenses, prescriptions and eye tests again. No question. And as we do, I want older people across this country to know this: for all the decades you've toiled, for all the years you've done the right thing, for the rest of your days you'll have dignity and security. Because in the Conservatives and in me, you have a party and a Prime Minister who are firmly on your side. Now, commitment 5, our final pledge, is to ensure that Britain has a strong economy so we can protect the NHS and make sure that no one is forced to sell their home to pay for care. Now, we know there is one fundamental thing to our National Health Service, more fundamental than actually all the others, and that is strong, stable public finances. With our long-term economic plan, that's what we've delivered. The deficit halved as a share of the economy, inflation low, record job creation, an economy that's grown faster than any other major economy in the developed world. Now that might sound nothing to do with health, but I would argue it's got everything to do with health. It's enabled us to protect the NHS, to increase its budget by £12.7 billion, to employ 9,500 more doctors, 6,000 more nurses, 1,000 more GPs. There's one group that depends on them more than most, and that is Britain's elderly. We don't just want the NHS to be there for them, we want the NHS to work for them. We're ending those years of seeing different doctor after different doctor, an anonymous patient pushed from pillar to post. We're doing that by restoring the family doctor, one GP who stays with you throughout your care. We're strengthening the connection between health and social care. We're spending, from the 1st of April, £5.3 billion integrating the two, so when doctor speaks to carer, when hospital specialist talks to district nurse, families are engaged and older people get the best treatment. And we're getting hold of one of the greatest enemies of humanity, which I was speaking about on Saturday, dementia. We've doubled the money we spend on research, we've made hospitals and care homes more friendly for those living with the conditions, and we've trained 1 million people as dementia friends, people who understand and support those who have that condition. And as I announced on Saturday, we're going to extend that to a new target of 3 million dementia friends. And that other great source of insecurity, a great worry for people as they grow old, the cost of care. We're addressing that too. In the past, we've seen 45,000 people each year forced to sell their own home to pay for care. Now, government's held review after review, but we have been the first to take action. Our care reforms are the most significant for 70 years, sparing thousands of elderly people the heartache of having to sell their beloved family home. That is done through the Dilnot cap. So those are my 5 commitments for the next 5 years. And each of them comes back to conservative values. We believe if you put in, you should get out. And no one has put in more than those who've contributed to our country for decades. We believe in a reward for hard work, and no one has worked harder or longer or seen tougher times than our elderly. We believe that those who can should, and those who can't, we always help, and we are. Older people need us. We're there for them today, and as Conservatives, we'll always be for them, always. They have done so much for us. This is the least we can do for them. And I'll tell you what, I believe when we have this debate, the younger generation agree with us about this too. Ask anyone, do you want your parent or grandparent to be looked after as they grow old? They will say yes. Like me, these children and grandchildren want nothing more than for the older generation to be given the dignity and the security that they deserve. Because that's what we do in this country. We look out for those who need us. It has been a personal mission for me, and that's why I'm setting out these commitments today, and why again, in office, as Prime Minister, I will stick to them. Thank you very much indeed for listening. Now we've got some time for questions and points, and we've got some questions from the press who are at the back. I'll take them perhaps after some points from the audience first. If anyone wants to kick off, there's a roving microphone. Say who you are, where you're from, what your question is, or what your point is, and I'll do my best. Gentleman here. 3 back. Hold on. You may not need a microphone, sir, but just in case, there's one on its way.
Yeah, hi, my name's Colin Case, work for Saga. Just on commitment 3 there, regarding taking the pensions in 6 weeks' time. We read and hear that maybe the pension providers are not going to be ready for a smooth journey for that to happen. I mean, what's your opinion on that? Is it going to go to plan?
I think it will go to plan because, this was announced in a budget and then was a lot of work that was carried out. Legislation's been passed through Parliament. It's a very sophisticated sector, the financial services sector. It has meant change for them. And of course, not all change is always welcomed by certain sides because, of course, there was a very captive business that you retired, you bought an annuity, and there was an enormous market for the financial providers. I think actually they've seen, and they've been quite welcoming of this change, that there'll be lots of new products they can try and promote to people to give them more freedom and flexibility. But the idea you had to buy an annuity, that was the only thing you can do, I think that is outdated. And so I think, yes, it will come in on time, it will work. We'll need to make sure people get good financial advice, and we're putting steps in place for that. But in the end, I always think those moves you make when you trust people to do the right thing by themselves with their own money, those changes tend to come off much better than some of the experts predict. One question from the broadcasters. I think we've got the BBC's turn this time.
Thank you, Prime Minister. Eleanor Garnier, BBC News. You say that some of the pensioner benefits, if they were to be cut, would only save a small amount of money. But actually, as a whole, your policies for pensioners are very expensive. So why is it fair for young people to have to pay for them?
I tell you what I think is fair, is it's fair to have raised the state pension age, which has saved, or will save us, over £500 billion. That is a very significant saving. And what this government has done is take difficult and long-term decisions to get our budget back towards balance and make sure our country can afford its public services. That was a very big change. But I look at the issue of pensioner benefits, and as I gave you the figures, if you're only going to make very, very small savings, which according to the Institute of Fiscal Studies are almost lost in the rounding errors of the national accounts, if you're going to make very small savings from taking them away from richer people, to do that, you're giving up an important principle, which is in our country, if you've worked hard, you've done the right thing, you've saved during your life, you should know not only that you're going to get a decent state pension, but also the winter fuel payments, the free bus passes, the TV license, those things are there for you as of right. And to give that up for such a tiny saving in comparison with the big changes that need to be made, I don't think is worthwhile. I think we need to make sure we are fair as we reduce the deficit. We need to make sure the richest pay the most, and they have and they will in future. But I don't think we should break the system of having benefits for pensioners for such a small saving when you're giving up such an important principle and such a reassurance to people in our country. Look, I'm afraid that is all we've got time for. Can I thank Saga and thank the good people of Hastings and thank Amber for hosting us today. What I've tried to do today is set out as clearly and straightforwardly as I can that part of our manifesto that is about dignity and security in old age. It is such an important principle, such a prize to have in our country. And I think the combination of the single-tier pension, which is one of the most exciting reforms the government's putting in place, with the new freedoms that the Chancellor has arranged for pensioners in our budget, I think that's at the heart of a really great achievement of the dignity and security that older people deserve. Thank you very much indeed.